Hello everyone and welcome back to Local Liberty. This is Brian Saucier and we are on episode 3 of our series on homesteading, and I am going to dive into some of the basics of gardening. Growing, and I'm primarily going to talk about growing vegetables. That's been most of my experience so far, and that's what we'll be talking about today. So just like people, plants have similar needs. We're kind of related, share, I don't know, 70% of our DNA or something funky like that. Plants need light, preferably sunlight, food, and water. Um, Sunlight is the simplest and sometimes the most constrained of those three. Um, you need a vegetable plant, things like a tomato plant, something that's producing a nice juicy fruit, needs somewhere in the realm of 5 to 6 hours of good high sun a day. And that's, if you can reach that mark, you're going to be okay, you're going to get a good yield. You can get by with less than that, but you are going to get less. You're going to get less tomatoes or less cucumbers or whatever the case may be. Water is a little more complicated, but not much. Basically, the sort of the smart answer with watering is don't give it too much and don't dry it out. And that's something that I remember when I first started growing stuff. We had an apartment like a lot of folks get started out in, and we had stuff in containers. And watering in containers is a whole lot more of a critical thing to measure than it is in the ground. In the ground, if you have good soil, you can pretty much just water stuff, water and water and water. You're not going to overwater it, and chances are you're not going to underwater it. But in a container, you have to be very careful about how much water. You can, and I know by experience, you can drown plants in a container, especially if the container doesn't drain. So the idea with water, and I'll sort of tie this into the next part about food. I sort of think of this as water and food can both be made simpler and both effectively dealt with by kind of looking at this one sort of mantra in gardening, and that is feed the soil, not the plants. That's one of the basics of organic gardening, and what that means is the soil, even if we can't see it, real healthy garden soil or a pasture or some undisturbed forest soil, it's alive. The soil is full of microorganisms. It's called the soil food web. And basically what this is there's millions of different kinds of microorganisms that live in the soil that break down organic matter and other things in the soil and turn that into food. And what you want to, into food that the plants need. And what you want to do is you want to create the best environment you can for the soil life. And then the soil life will in turn create the different types of nutrients and micronutrients that your plants need to grow to be healthy, vigorous, pest-free plants. Now back to the water part. And this sort of struck me as, boy, this solution seems too easy. But as I read more about it, now it makes total sense. The way you deal with water also sort of ties into the feeding the soil part. And what you feed the soil with from that perspective is organic matter. Organic matter has two very unique traits in that it absorbs water readily and it swells, and it slowly releases that water. So if you have soil that is very sandy and it's always bone dry and nothing can grow in it because there's just no water in the soil, how do you fix that? You put organic matter in the soil. That compost, manure, rotting plants, mulch. Organic matter is what we think it is. It's stuff that's alive or was recently alive. So organic matter can do two things for you. If you have soil that drains too quickly, add organic matter. You have soil that's too wet and doesn't drain well enough, it's the same answer, add organic matter. So of the triad of the three things plants need, sunlight, food, and water. Sunlight, well, park it somewhere where it can see the sun. The food and water part, you can tackle both of those efficiently and cheaply by following the mantra of feed the soil. Put organic matter in the soil and minimize the other kinds of inputs like insecticides and herbicides. So those are the three basics. That might be really review for somebody that's already been gardening. Like I said, we're going to start from the beginning and hopefully provide a set of information that local gardeners or gardeners to be can help get a little bit of a jump start with. Now, where can you create these conditions? you can. The good news is just about anywhere. I already alluded to growing in containers. Now, as I said, sunlight is the simplest, but sometimes the most problematic. If you live in an apartment that your porch is facing the wrong direction, it's facing north, chances are there's not going to be a lot of sun on your front porch. But containers are very portable. Anywhere that you can put a 5-gallon bucket full of some healthy soil and move it around to get some sunlight, you can get enough sun. So growing past containers, you can have your very healthy soil conditions can be in just about anybody's front lawn or backyard. Chances are, construction is typically taking place on prime construction soil, and prime agricultural soil are the same thing. So nice, flat, well-drained soil, that's what a contractor wants to put in a house, and nice, flat yard and well-drained soil, that's what a farmer wants. So there's a decent chance that your yard already is very fertile soil. And dig up some of that lawn and grow some food. There's also a chance that you could be unlucky that the contractor sort of strip mined your property. I've seen that happen in certain places, and you don't have any more topsoil. But then not all is lost. You start on a small scale, and you can create your own topsoil, doing things like composting. You can compost in place. Sheet mulch is a kind of way to apply different layers of organic matter that compost right in place and create some very healthy soil for you in a couple of years' time or less. But the bottom line is you can create the conditions needed to grow healthy, vigorous, and disease-resistant and pest-resistant plants just about anywhere. For us, that basically means you minimize the toxic chemical inputs. Not to say never ever use them. I've been reading the Little House on the Prairie series to my children, and one of the books, Laura's family, her dad's wheat crop gets destroyed by a plague of grasshoppers, and as whatever principles that guy had, you can bet your farm that if he had a pesticide to apply to stop those grasshoppers from destroying his livelihood, he would use it. So at times when I'm desperate, I've used some of it, and it's not the end of the world. But it's expensive. It's an intervention that leads to other kinds of interventions. So basically, it's something that should be a last resort, and you focus on feeding the soil, which will in turn feed your plants, and you hopefully find that you don't need to use those kind of interventions. But that's getting a little off track. That is a quick intro to gardening on the basics of sunlight, water, and food for your plants. Check out the next series. We're going to talk about what kinds of plants you can grow around here and where to get them. Thanks for listening. Check us out on YouTube, Local Liberty, put it in quotes. Take care.